Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining our live session today. My name is Larissa. I'm an event planner at Reactor, joining you from Brazil. Before we start, I have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. The session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand here on the Reactor YouTube channel within 48 hours. Keep an eye on the chat, we'll be dropping helpful links and checking for your questions. I will now turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you all, and let's welcome Marty and Irving.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm here with Fabric Data Factory, watching you in Robot. And how are you, Erwin?
I'm doing fine, Marty. It's cool that we
Great.
have a really great time difference between each other, but we will rock the stage today.
That's right, Erwin. So if you don't know, I'm based in Australia, the other side of the world from Erwin. So I'm Martin Catherall. I've been a Microsoft MVP since 2014, worked my way up through SQL Server, Azure, Synapse, and finally to Fabric. And I've been exploring Fabric for the last 3 years or so since it's been in private and then public preview. So that's me. What about you, Erwin?
Yeah, so what Marty was saying, I'm on the other side of the world, maybe a little bit closer to you. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm also a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and I'm the technology lead for data for InSpark, a Microsoft partner in the Netherlands. And like Marty, I'm working from the day one with Fabric. I think we had a code name before. If you want to connect with me, the details are in the link. And yeah, the great thing of today, we have 3 moderators. So if you have questions, please do ask them. So say hello to Jeff, Mike, and Parv. They will definitely help you with answering your questions in the chat. So everything is going to the chat. This is the last session of the FabCon recap series. But what Larissa was saying already, all the sessions are there to record back after this session. So go to the link or scan the QR code and you're ready to go to watch everything you want to see. And the great thing as well, we just announced that the registration for Atlanta 2027 is now open. I was there this year or like 1 month ago, and I hope to see you next year there as well. Let's start with a session, Marty.
Yeah, great stuff, Erwin. Yeah, just a note about what you said there about FabCon. Great place to go. I've been to all the ones in America. I've not been over to Europe yet, so hope to see you over there next time. But on a similar note, if you're using Fabric, you want to say how good it is, how bad it is, you've got any feedback, or you just want to help the product team enhance what they've done and offer your feedback, join the Fabric user panel. And you're getting some sessions with some of the marketing people, the people who lead the solutions, and give them your feedback and hopefully contribute to making the product better. Great one for people new to Fabric, because maybe people who are new have got a different perspective than people who have been using it for a long time. So if you are new, maybe you've used it 1, 2, 3 times, you want to provide some additional feedback. Follow that link, aka.ms, new to Fabric, and get your notes in there to the product team. But let's get going and let's get into our core ideas. So I guess the theme for today is really Fabric, data factory, and a lot of things that go on with it, moving data, orchestrating data, and the likes, and all the peripherals that go on around it. But just like as an introduction, we got Fabric ideas. So ideas.fabric.microsoft.com. And we can see there that over the course of time, we got a fair few ideas completed with 67 there. Some big ticket items there, tumbling support, Windows support for Fabric. Some, maybe people don't consider them too great. Fabric IntelliSense, sorry, not Fabric, Power Query IntelliSense. Dataflow Gen 2 refreshes, mirroring to Google BigQuery, SCD Type 2 updates, and all that sort of thing. So some top voted ones that are in progress. So there are some ones in progress. Dataflow activity parameters, some changes to Dataflow Gen 2s, global parameter support for data pipelines, and passing parameters to schedule pipelines and triggers.
Woo! One
And
of my biggest votes.
Is that one of your biggest votes, Erwin? Yeah. Good stuff there, Erwin. So remember, if you like the idea, and get in there and upvote it. I'm sure you upvoted that one, Erwin.
Definitely.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so just some notes around data. There's some big numbers here. You know, lots of orchestrations, 23 billion, massive amount of data moved, and lots of Power Query. One thing that did stand out to me here was 536,000 data gateways. Now that seems a small number compared to all the other numbers. So I just read into this myself. I'm guessing a lot of people have already moved into the cloud, and maybe they're not bringing so much data over from on-premises. And that was just my perspective. But the data gateway's got a lot of love and a lot of support over the years. So bringing data from behind a firewall, on-premise, and that sort of thing has got a lot easier. As maybe you're probably aware, the Microsoft Fabric offering has made big inroads in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for data integration tools. And for the 5th year, Microsoft is up in the top right-hand corner, along with some other big players up there, sort of really towards the top, maybe looking to go over towards completeness of vision a bit more. I guess any of these on here can be improved, and bringing improvements to your solution is definitely a great way to go. And you guys out there, the Fabric people watching this, can contribute immensely. But don't forget, if you're watching, put in the chat where you're from, put your questions in there. You're watching this live, you've got our moderators there willing to answer questions. You're not going to get that on the YouTube replay. So you've got basically a good opportunity to throw your questions in the chat. We've got 3 great people there wanting to answer questions. So away we go. So the data estate for the AI age. Everyone's talking about AI. We want to unify our data, process and harmonize, create the semantic knowledge to go through to the consumption, and empower AI agents. So I guess at the end of the day, it's all about having our users consume the data, see the dashboards, the reports, so on, so forth. And that's what they see, that's what users see. But behind the scenes, people like myself, Erwin, all the Fabric MVPs, the product teams, have contributed to this great thing. So unifying data, Fabric Data Factory, sort of got that flow to unify, transformation, and also orchestrate. So we'll talk a lot more about orchestration later on. But, Fabric Data Factory, it's not just about copying data. It can be used to orchestrate, to make other things work, and call other solutions. So built for trust. Trust is obviously a massive, big deal in the world of computing or business or whatever. We need to be able to trust our applications, our people, whatever. And that is a really big thing. So mission critical data integration, got to be enterprise ready, got to be secure by default. Some of the big ticket items that have happened here, outbound access protection, securing the integration, and preventing, data exfiltration. And that data exfiltration, it can happen by people making mistakes, not just technical breaches or whatever. So training your people as well as the technology to do the right thing is kind of really important. And the two things go hand in hand, the process and the technology, because at the end of the day, we're dealing a lot with people. I know people talk a lot about AI at the minute, and AI can do this and that or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's our people that are making things work here. Azure Key Vault support. So Key Vault, as you may well know, stores our secrets, our passwords, our credentials, certificates, that sort of thing. And we can securely manage things in there. So like, I don't have to know the secret I logged on with today. I just get it from my password safe. Not in this case, not Azure Key Vault, but same sort of principle. So when our applications need to connect, just go to Azure Key Vault, get the credential that no human being knows, use it. If it needs to be rotated, because rotating keys, certificates, and that sort of thing is something that we should be doing as part of our data posture, and rotating them seamlessly, not causing any kind of outage, is an optimal thing to do. So hybrid scenarios as well, industry leading hybrid data access. So like we talked before, we've got our on-prem data gateways. So data can be on-prem, it can be behind VNets. You might need a gateway to do that as well. And we can enable secure data integration and its compliance across all these boundaries with the work that the team has done on all of these gateways. So let's just concentrate a little bit more on outbound access protection for Data Factory. So obviously things have got endpoints here and there, and we want to prevent exfiltration and untrusted data getting out. So we've got to be able to trust our endpoints, and that's kind of, I guess, the premise of everything going forward. To permit those trusted connections or use specific data source endpoints. Get a gateway allow list, so prevent exfiltration lists via untrusted gateways. We want, if there's a gateway there that's untrusted, we want to know about it. And we want to allow those trusted gateways to be used within the workspace or the set of workspaces that we've got within our Fabric items. So, outbound access protection for data.
To enable OAP on this workspace, I will navigate to the
and
workspace settings. Then I will select outbound networking. Here, there's an option to block outbound public access. Now we'll see all the options on how to enable and disable access to different connections. Additionally, I can specify rules for many specific connection kinds like SharePoint, SQL Server, Databricks, and more. This allows me to provide an allow list of data source endpoints that are permitted from this workspace. I'll add a connection rule to allow a specific SQL Server connection. With the rule and exception in place, I'll try a connection that is not an endpoint exception within my existing pipeline. As we can see, the connection fails. Now if I try a connection that is an endpoint exception, the connection succeeds, confirming that OAP now only allows the explicitly permitted endpoint. The outbound access protection rules apply to Dataflow's Gen 2 and copy jobs as well. With outbound access protection in Microsoft Fabric, you gain control over data connectivity and can set safeguards to help minimize risk of data exfiltration. To enable
given at the at FabCon over in Atlanta early this year, and this set of slides that we're looking at, it comes directly from there. So they obviously had a lot more time than we've got here, me and Erwin, but we haven't altered the slides. We're going to go through them. We might go through them a bit quicker, but yeah, if you want to go back and watch the video, all good. But they are the slides that were given at the conference. So we talked a bit about Azure Key Vault support in VNet data gateway connections there, sort of eliminating credential sprawl. You've got a single place where you keep those credentials. You don't have to keep them in 2 or 3 places, just one targeted area where your credentials live. And that helps strengthen the enterprise and also provides security and good governance. So good governance is obviously more of a process. Obviously, it's helped along with technological tools, but yeah, it's a process, and obviously processes involve people. And one of those is keeping your secrets. So that's really good stuff. And we have one of the features here that's now generally available. We've got our on-premise data gateway auto updates. So eliminating kind of manual intervention to do updates. And that's a good thing in, a lot of solutions. Means like people like me and Erwin don't have to go in. I'm sure Erwin doesn't make mistakes, whereas I do. So manual intervention, cutting that out is a good thing, and having it done seamlessly behind the scenes can.
This is a really nice feature. What you're saying, you don't have to go into the VM or to log in to update the gateway. Now you can do it from the Fabric portal. It's amazing, amazing feature.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like that. Any feature that kind of cuts out sort of manual maintenance is really good. So it reduces operational risk and also reduces downtime or the threat of downtime. So built for trust. So you can pipelines you can trust for mission critical workloads. We've got a load of things that are generally available. Some of the things that are coming to public preview that you can comment on, you can get in touch with the Fabric team, you can go to Fabric Ideas, but they're in public preview, and giving your feedback would be really cool and help us make the product a lot better than it possibly already is. And we've got a sneak peek on some of the things that are coming up there. So just a few highlights from my own knowledge there. The PowerShell model gateway as gateways, that's gone GA. We talked about that. VNet cluster support across multiple instances there. Some of the things that are in public preview, though, some of the like the big ticket items, SharePoint site picker for sources and destinations. So connecting to SharePoint has been something that's been asked for, and obviously it's getting into a public preview at the minute. And some of the things that are coming soon, we've got that VNet auto scaling, that VNet gateway auto scaling, and then running pipelines under a service principal identity. Great stuff. Means that, you know, people like myself and Erwin don't have to have our own credentials running things. They can run under a service principal themselves. So, Erwin, over to you, mate. What are you going to talk about?
Thank you, Marty. Thank you. It was a great introduction on the transform part. So let's switch over to the unify part. With unify, we will talk about connectors, we will talk about mirroring, we will talk about shortcuts and much more stuff. Yeah, you know, OneLake unified the world's data. I think by now we know that OneLake is our big data lake where we store all our data in. It's just like your OneDrive on your laptop. It's all with all data in there. And the great thing is that now with your OneLake, you can unify every data. So you have cross-cloud shortcuts. That means that you can connect your existing data lake, Gen 2, for example. You leave the data in your data lake and you create a shortcut to your OneLake. So you can start using that data, which stays on your local destination. It stays there. You can use it. The same for AWS or Snowflake. The data stays there. It's like a metadata copy of your data. So the data stays where it stays. The other thing is with mirroring, we have also the other part so that we can replicate the data. That means that your data will stay into the will be mirrored to your OneLake there. And Marty was a little bit going too fast, but what I want to highlight is that the great things which are now available is that you have the mirroring available, which is GA, is from SAP and Oracle DB. I think in the Netherlands, a lot of customers are using Oracle DB to mirror, because instead of having the extraction every day, you know, the Oracle admins always say, oh, you're only allowed to have 1 hour connection time. You only get 5 connections. With Oracle DB mirroring, the data is flowing in all the time, and you can start building reports directly on your operational data sets. Currently in preview, we have the SharePoint and OneDrive. So now you can connect to files on your OneDrive, but also to your Azure DB for MySQL. And what is coming soon, that's the Azure monitoring part and Dremio. I think Dremio went live this week, so you can now see it within your Fabric environment. Be aware that you have to enable one of the settings in the admin portal to get there. And the Azure Monitor, now you can build reports or real-time reports into Fabric based on your Azure Monitor, which is going to be an amazing stuff. So looking to mirroring, there is a new option. It's called like the extended capabilities in mirroring. With the extended capabilities in mirroring, you can build change data feeds. What does it mean, a change data feed? That means that you can only track the records which has been inserted new, which have been updated or have been deleted in your source database. So that means that your window of processing your data is getting much smaller, because you get the changes in there.
Hey,
and of course,
Owen, I've got to apologize. I was getting a bit lost in the connectors there. There's so many connectors. I'm getting lost in the connectors, lost in the slides. But great stuff you're talking there, mate.
great to hear, Marty. So the next part is, I think what Marty was saying, 170 connectors already. I think a year ago that were like, they came up with 30 to 40 more every year. So I think mostly every data source we can extract. So if you go to the next slide, Marty, we can see how many connectors are already GA, Google BigQuery, MySQL, Postgres, Snowflake database, and the SharePoint files, so we can connect directly to Excel files in SharePoint, are now in public preview. And coming soon is that you can use Microsoft OneLake as a source, Jira, your service management system, Oracle Fusion, and Oracle Autonomous DB, but also the data destinations for Amazon S3, Google Cloud Storage, and Postgres. Can you imagine? Maybe you have a website running on Amazon and you want to upload new images, or you want to write new data for your website. You can now directly write from Fabric to files within your Amazon S3 buckets, and they will be used within your website, for example. So you will see that the OneLake is getting the whole integration for all your data which lives in your complete data estate. So,
hey, Erwin, that's a really great point, mate. Lots of people tend to think of the connectors as being just being used to read data, but you can also write as well. So great pointing that out, mate. That's really great.
yeah, so I have customers running Snowflake, and they do all the transformations within Fabric, and then they send the data to Snowflake, for example. So it's not what you were saying, only source systems, it's also destinations, which makes the intercompatibility between all these source systems very, very easy. So the next one is transform. And we're going to talk about DBT and Dataflow Gen 2. So if we look to Dataflow, to the data flows, it's like the low code and pro code data transformations. I think we can do a lot of it with Power Query. We have AI transformations in there. And we also have like all the connectors now to also to Snowflake, but also to Excel and to SharePoint, which they are very, very, very proud on what they do have over there. So what I want to show, because the great thing is with that SharePoint demo, what I'm going to show you in a second is that you can connect to an Excel workbook, that you can edit everything within Excel from your SharePoint list, and the data is automatically used within Fabric.
Dataflow Gen 2 now allows you to run your results into an Excel file.
Sorry, I was a bit premature there, Erwin.
You can start the demo. Roll the demo, Marty.
Right, thanks a lot, mate. Thanks.
Dataflow Gen 2 now allows you to output your results into an Excel file in SharePoint. Here is how it works. Set up your data destination over here. Click on SharePoint. Find the data destination. Make sure your connection is set up properly and hit next. So over here in file format, we select Excel preview. Then on the left-hand side, we make sure that we are selecting the shared documents folder. We call it sales.xlsx. And in this case, we want to have a multi-sheet format. We can choose our partition column. And what we want to choose today is actually the category name. Now the category name becomes the value we are splitting our data set into multiple sheets. With this set, we can hit next, confirm our schema, and save settings. With this, we now are writing our sales data into multiple sheets within Excel. Let's refresh the data flow and look at the results. And here's the result in SharePoint. Our sales.xlsx file is ready. Opening it, we will see all the data written directly into Excel with a separate sheet for each product category. Dairy product, beverages, each on their own sheet, ready for your team to build charts, pivot tables, or plug into their existing workflows. This is just one example. You can use Excel destination for scheduled reporting, team dashboards, or any scenario your stakeholders need data delivered in a familiar format. Check out the documentation for more options and let us know what you think. Dataflow Gen 2 now allows you to output your results into
they let us get through them a bit quicker, but you obviously need a better operator.
No worries. So if you go to the next slide, the great thing of this demo is that it's done by Jeroen. And Jeroen is one of the Dutch guys in the product team for Data Factory. So it's always nice to hear Dutch people within the demos. So what I think Marty already said it, we have that SharePoint site picker. So instead of going through putting in your SharePoint link completely, you can now say, okay, this is my site URL, or you can see all your recent sites or your favorite sites. But you also have the fast SharePoint site search. So you can just type in support, and every site with support will be showed over there, which is much easier to click, because like if you go to a SQL database and you have to create a SQL database connection, you first have to copy in the whole SQL server. You have to put in this, the database name. It's quite a lot of work if that is for the first time. But now it's already there, showing directly which sites are available for you with your credentials within your SharePoint environment. So the next thing, DBT jobs. And I hope that there are a lot of people using DBT. So in the beginning with DBT, I was not that fan, but I've been playing around with DBT a lot lately, and it is getting better and better. So we have to now have, so if you had built your previous DBT jobs already and you stored them in GitHub, you now can connect GitHub to it, and your packages or YAML files are directly visible within your DBT job within Fabric. We also now have the possibility to have our public packages. So, for example, that we can use the DBT utils, which can help us to generate foreign keys or surrogate keys. And another great thing is that we also have the enterprise scale logging. That means that we can now stream logs to OneLake with no size limit. So the 1 MB limit is now gone. And coming soon, I think we can skip the whole coming soon. We will get the pipeline DBT activity within the pipeline. So DBT is an activity which you have to create just like a Lakehouse, just like a notebook, just like a pipeline, just like a Dataflow. But if you open a pipeline, you can start using that activity as a DBT activity. So you can build or you can orchestrate it with your pipelines. For example, I'm first gonna do some extraction data to a Lakehouse for my SQL Server on-prem. Then I will use that Lakehouse as my source, the warehouse as my destination, because currently we only have the warehouse as a destination for DBT jobs. Lakehouse are coming soon. And then you can start building your DBT jobs. You can build in unit tests in there. You can build in documentation. But I think you, Marty, let's rock the video and have a look at how DBT activity is working in real scenarios.
DBT jobs in Microsoft Fabric simplify operationalizing DBT at scale. Fabric provides a fully managed native way to run, schedule, monitor, and govern DBT projects. You can bring existing DBT projects directly from GitHub into Fabric with no code changes. Teams can reuse their existing repositories, stay aligned with CI/CD practices, and start running DBT jobs in Fabric in minutes instead of weeks. We now support public DBT packages, allowing teams to use well-known community packages like dbt-ut and servants for generating surrogate keys, performing data quality checks, or reusing macros across hundreds of models, all with the familiar package definitions they already depend on. DBT job execution logs are now stored in OneLake, removing the previous 1 megabyte job output limitation. This makes DBT jobs far more reliable and scalable, especially for large projects, while enabling full fidelity troubleshooting, auditing, and long-term observability using Fabric native analytics. DBT jobs are now a first-class activity in Fabric pipelines. This enables rich orchestration, where ingestion, transformation, and downstream analytics all run in a single pipeline. You can parameterize DBT job properties directly from the pipeline, making it easy to build metadata-driven, dynamic data workflows. Everything you can do in the UI, triggering runs, monitoring execution, and managing jobs, is also available through REST APIs. Together, these enhancements make dbt jobs in Microsoft Fabric easy to onboard, powerful to operate, and ready for production-scale analytics, from Git and public packages to enterprise logging, orchestration, and automation. dbt jobs.
Yeah, really amazing dbt job. I think what you have seen in the last part of the demo, that you can see the lineage, that you directly can see, okay, this table is created from this table, and is created from that table. I think that's one of the most asked I heard from my customers. We want to see lineage. And please let us know in the chat how many people of you are already using or playing around with dbt, because I think it's going to be the future. And if you're really good in dbt, I heard there's a kind of a hackathon, just like notebook challenges, or there's now also a dbt challenge that you have to build your metadata driven pipeline within dbt, and then you can win some great prizes. So if we look to the transform part, we have been talking, I'm not going to talk about all the general availability stuff, but in public preview, very important, we have a new data destination, advanced UX part, new data destinations, what we have seen for Dataflow Gen 2, like Snowflake and Excel files, but also the dbt job, what I said, the GitHub support, the public packages, and the enhanced logging part. And for dbt, what I already said, the Lakehouse as a destination is coming. And also, as well, which is very important for CI/CD, is support for variable library support, that you can change your destinations with the variable library inside there. And what I already said, the dbt job activity in the pipeline already arrived. So normally West Europe is one of the latest regions. I've seen it, it's in there. So yeah, I think what I will do, I will head over to Marty again to continue with some other stuff. Marty.
Great stuff, Erwin. Thanks a lot. I love presenting with other people. Like I haven't used a lot of dbt, so I've learned a little bit there. I've been playing with it. I've not used it in anger yet, but I'm hoping to. So, but one of the things that a lot of these dbt tools, Fabric Data Factory, all things have got in common, they're not just used to like pull data from one place to the other and push data. They're also used to orchestrate. So to pull things together, to do one thing after another, to get a flow of like how data is going to move and what we're calling next. And that's basically what we call orchestration. So let's look at that a little bit more through like things like pipelines and Airflow or Apache Airflow. So when we normally think about, well, when I used to think just about things like Data Factory or SSIS or Azure Data Factory, I'd always think that all it did was pull data, push data, do whatever. But it orchestrates things as well. So we can call one task after the other, after the other. That might be a set of store procedures. It might be a set of notebooks. It might be other things. So one of the things that I personally used this for in an orchestration sense is to build a metadata driven framework where the data, the data is being brought over through a copy job, through Azure, through Fabric Data Factory. But after that point, we're going to run some notebooks. We're going to go on some SQL store procedures. We're going to update our semantic model, and we're going to make sure our reports are all good. So after the data is initially brought across, we're literally just orchestrating the rest of the tasks. So Fabric Data Factory is in charge of calling a store procedure, calling a notebook, running another notebook in a certain order. If something goes wrong, if there's a branching logic, we do it in the orchestration rather than in the store procedure or the notebook itself. And that's kind of, I kind of overlooked that when I first started in this. But once you get that down packed, I think you're on the way to using Fabric Data Factory to its full potential, not only to ingest data, but also to orchestrate through pipelines. And this can all be done with low code. Visual orchestration, dragging and dropping, we see there on the screen, basically tasks that have been dragged on and joined together. So quite low code. We've got some managed Airflow. So Airflow is from Apache Spark, and we can run what's called in there DAGs. So distributed graphs, distributed. It's a bit of a tongue twister, to tell you the truth. I'm just going to say DAG. And that basically does the same thing. It orchestrates and runs as well. So we got another option for doing things like that. And of course, we've got our AI and our Copilot enabled within both our pipelines, our Airflow jobs, and making you more productive with AI in general. One of the things I find that AI pretty useful for, I am always forgetting syntax. And throughout history, I've been into the documentation, looking it up, and nowadays I can just ask AI. Saves me a whole lot of time. But okay, so what else have we got in terms of activities? Because our pipelines obviously call activities, and they're responsible for doing things. So we've got a new Lakehouse maintenance pipeline activity, and that can do a lot of things. So optimize, vacuum, V-order, endpoints, all that sort of thing. So refreshing the SQL endpoints, why is that a big deal? Well, I remember doing some work with endpoints, again on my metadata-driven pipeline, where I pulled data into the Lakehouse and then pushed it into the warehouse. And I remember at one stage the endpoints were taking a little bit of time to update. So what you pushed there wasn't visible for maybe a couple of minutes. The team's done a lot of work on that, and now those refresh happens. Like, there's still probably a bit of a lag while things are catching up, but it's nowhere near what it was. And I think there's an SLA on the time that you should see that refresh enabled now. So that's really good progress that has been made there. But the other things kind of all apply to our Parquet files, our Delta Parquet files under the covers, because obviously our Delta Parquet files, they kind of maintain a history of what's happening within our table over a period of time. And as data goes in, it gets extracted, whatever, obviously files build up, and we don't want them to build up to such a point where they cause a performance bottleneck or whatever it is. So we need to do things like vacuum, and we need to optimize, and also apply V-order. So we do our maintenance with our option optimize and vacuum. And what's V-order? So V-order is kind of Microsoft's way of putting, I'm going to say, like an additional index over the top of your data Parquet files to make querying a lot faster. Totally open source again, or it can be built on other, it's not specifically for Microsoft here, although they obviously built it. So the maintenance pipeline activities, really good thing to be using. We've got interval-based scheduling as well. So we've got these things called tumbling windows. We've got all sorts of different windows, scheduled windows, stepping windows, all that sort of thing. And having maybe an interval based within those is probably a good thing. So simplifies kind of non-overlapping time intervals, simplifies those time slices through the windowing functions. And you can create as many fixed or interval schedules as needed. That depends obviously on your business logic, when you want to update things, when you want to schedule things, and all the like. So mentioned Airflow a little bit there. We've got our job of Apache Airflow job fabric providers, and there can orchestrate native fabric actions either instantly or on an event, like a button clicked from Airflow, something like that. So it removes the complexity of orchestrating your fabric items themselves within the Apache Airflow job. Talked about DAGs, that are distributed acyclic graphs. Like I say, I'll just say DAGs because it's a bit of a mouthful. So you can right click and select from those rich native fabric options in in the Airflow itself. And the code blocks can be added automatically for you. So that low code kind of graphical orchestration interface. So let's move on.
Sorry, Marty. Let us know in the let us know in the chat how many people are using Apache Airflow, because I think if you look to what Marty was saying, job orchestration. So if you have 10 notebooks and you want to orchestrate them in a certain way, then Apache Airflow is the way to go. And even if you want to say, okay, at the end, I want to run some pipelines, you now also can add pipelines to Apache Airflows. So you don't need to build the whole orchestration anymore within a pipeline. You can use the Apache Airflows, define all the dependencies on top of it, and or you say this notebook should be finished before I can start that notebook, which like is pretty amazing. You can do that also with Spark, but this is really cool stuff. So I'm really just curious how many people are using it. So please let us know in the chat. Go on.
Yeah, great stuff, Erwin. Like it is, yeah, it is kind of always interesting to find like how things are being uptaken. Normally what I find with technology, you get a little bit of an uptake at start and then things get to a critical point and they become mainstream. But yeah, really interested. Drop us a note, not only about Apache Airflow, anything you're using within Fabric that we've talked about here. But yeah, thank you very much. So orchestration, let's see a demo.
To orchestrate your processes in Fabric Data Factory, we provide both code-free pipelines as well as code-first Apache Airflow jobs. Let's first take a look at the latest innovations that we're bringing to pipelines. Here in my Medallion Architecture ETL pipeline, I'm running a notebook for my gold layer. Now within pipelines, when I operationalize my process, it's very easy to change the authorization type from user auth, which is fine for development and testing, but for production, I want to run the activities as a service principal or a workspace identity. This provides a much more durable way to run your pipelines in production. When we zoom back out and go to schedule our pipelines, you can now use what are called interval-based schedules. These are brand new and are essentially the equivalent of what are known as totally window triggers, Azure Data Factory. Just set your start date and time, your end date and time, and an interval. Fabric will then automatically create a set of time slices based on those intervals and then run my pipeline on those time windows in a non-overlapping manner. If we zoom back into the pipeline, you'll see at the end of my process, I'm performing 3 operations that keep my data refreshed and optimized. The first is the existing refresh semantic model. And then after that, we see the brand new refresh SQL endpoint. So the analytics endpoint can be kept up to date. And then with Lakehouse maintenance, I can ensure everything is optimized and ready for analytics by setting V order, Z order, and I can even vacuum and to optimize my Lakehouse from the single activity. Going back to the node layout for pipelines, we're introducing a brand new refresh of the pipeline node designs. By toggling to the optional new node design, you'll see that we have improved the ability to zoom out across large, complex pipelines to give you the ability to manage your pipelines in a much easier way. And then to go from something new to something from our past. We are bringing SSIS into Fabric as a new SSIS invoke package activity, a purely SaaS version of SSIS that does not require you to manage integration runtimes like you did from ADF. Just bring your packages into OneLake and we will run the SSIS package for you. That's it for now, and happy orchestrating.
We've got SSIS is now part of Fabric Data Factory. So I think that's really cool. And hats off to the teams for doing this. Like we've been able to run SSIS within Azure Data Factory for quite a long time, but now it's part of Fabric Data Factory. And I think that's a really good thing. And it expands the options that we've got because all these things are about options. So obviously over time, going back 10 years or so, 10, 20 years, people have used SSIS within SQL Server to copy data and do things that we're now doing in Data Factory. And they might not want to lose that investment. They might want to leverage on top of it. And you can do that now by calling it from a Data Factory activity. The one thing I'd caution people about this, nothing to do with the technology itself, more to do with the business case for doing it. Possibly it's better to rewrite in native Fabric Data Factory. Maybe that's an option. Maybe it will be cheaper to like make it again and run it natively, because Fabric Data Factory and Azure Data Factory, they're one of the cheaper things within Fabric if you're going like pay as you go kind of serverless activities. However, if you want something up and running straight away, you want to leverage your SSIS, then you've got the option of just taking it, plugging it into your data factory, and away you go. So again, we've got a balance maybe. So what I pointed out there might not be a technical limitation or a technical consideration, but it might be more of a business cost kind of consideration. But again, it's all about options, and the more options we have, the better. So what have we talked about here? We've talked about enterprise grade orchestration, both low code and no code. So like we've seen on a lot of our sites, there's things that are generally available. Some of the big ones there, the service principles, support within pipelines. There's a lot of things coming out in public preview. We just talked there about SSIS pipeline activities, and I'm sure that it's a well-known technology, SSIS. I'm sure that'll be going GA as soon as we've ironed out anything we need to iron out and got things better. Tumbling window triggers and that type of thing, along with Apache Airflow, and we mentioned there REST APIs. So not only does it apply to Airflow jobs and things like that, REST APIs in general, anything you can do through the UI, it all goes through a REST interface, and you can access those REST interfaces and do things programmatically. You don't necessarily have to do them through the UI. And there's a whole range of things that are coming soon. Pipeline dependency rules, SSIS managed VNets. Obviously,
so Marty,
yeah.
One of the people asked in the chat, we use SSIS behind the private network, how we can set up that in Fabric. This is your answer. SSIS managed VNets is coming, so then you can go to your on-prem data sources as well. So by this one, your question has been answered.
Great stuff, Erwin. Thanks a lot for that. It's difficult to talk and keep your eye on the chat. That's why I guess we've got two of us there. One chat, one but great stuff. And thank you for putting those questions in the chat. It is great to have them. Our operators, well, our moderators standing by, and obviously Erwin's on the ball there. So there we have it. Azure Data Factory, and we also want to distribute things. So we've got multi-cloud. Erwin talked before about writing to his S3 bucket, so multi-distributed copy jobs. Petabyte scale movement, richer connectors, a lot of connectors there. We've already heard about the Oracle ones, the SAP ones. You can not only use them as source, use them as destinations. There's familiar patterns we can use with change data capture to orchestrate or grab changes that have happened within our source and bring those changes across to our destination, so we don't have to copy like buckets and bucket loads of data all the time. We can just grab what's changed, form what may be our SCD type 2 dimensions, and get going like that. But auditing, we can audit columns in copy jobs, which is now in public preview, because we always want to see where our data's come from, where it's going, basically our lineage, how the data has flowed from the source right through to the destination. And a lot of this is done with the copy job. So being able to audit those little pieces of data is a great help to us. We've got workspace monitoring. Obviously, workspace monitoring is a big feature of Fabric in general. And the more we can monitor, the better we can make our applications. We can track when things don't go right, track when things do go right, how they're being used, and use all of that metric data to basically iterate and make things better. So there's been a lot of performance improvements within the copy jobs itself, built for optimization, built for speed, built for scale. Things like automatic partitioning to improve performance at large scale for bigger tables, and the faster copying performance as well by default when actually writing data to the Lakehouse tables. So we're bringing data in and getting it into those Lakehouse tables as fast as possible. So
I just want to add something, Marty. So with the copy job, if you run to the wizard, you never see that partition part. So just finish your wizard, what you normally should do with your copy job. Don't say run now, save it, go to advanced settings, go to performance and enable the auto partition, because the auto partition needs to be enabled before you run the first time your copy job. So just as a small thing, if you use copy job, the partition part is really amazing, because it will you can read your data faster afterwards as well, but you can also write your data faster if you do a lot of big data sets moving around. So just a small tip. Go ahead, Marty.
Might be a small tip, Erwin, but it's a great one. And coming to sessions like this is great. You know, you might hear 60-70% of things you already know, but you'll pick up little small tips like that you know could stand you in really good stead in the future. So great, thank you very much for that, Erwin. And we've got there things that are generally available that we talked about, things that are now in public preview, our new CDC capabilities with our Oracle source and our Fabric DW destinations, enhanced support for SCD type 2 dimensions, and obviously we've got a mention there of copy jobs with MCPs, so Model Contracts Protocol. Bit of a sneak peek on what's coming up soon. New CDC connectors for things like Salesforce, Postgres, MySQL, and performance improvements on single large Parquet CSV file tables. Always good to see performance improvements, whatever we're looking at there. But okay, so we've been through that part of the Data Factory part. And Erwin, what have you got in store for us to round us out with Fabric Data Factory?
Yeah, so I always say, if you don't say AI 20 times in your session, you're not cool anymore. So that's why we kept all this AI stuff to the end to get you overwhelmed with a lot of AI in a couple of slides. So if you can go to the next slide for me and to the next slide, so 2 slides. The great thing, I think we already talked a little bit, or Marty already talked a little bit, is that we have the AI-powered development with Data Factory. So within Data Factory, if you have Copilot enabled, you can say, okay, can you create me a pipeline which is doing a for each loop, getting data from this source, the destination is that source, you have to get the data from this and this tables, and Copilot will help you to create the whole pipeline. Of course, this is not for like production ready, but it's like if you never have seen a pipeline, it is a really great start to start building as a base, what I always say, as a fundament where you can start. The most of the logic is done for you, and then you can extend it with your own needs. But also what you can do is, like, if you run a pipeline and there's an error somewhere, you just can click on the Copilot button and it will translate that error into a more decent language for you, and maybe better to understand, or it will redirect you directly to the correct documentation on Microsoft Learn. And of course, I think by now everybody has been playing around with the MCP servers, with the MCP servers for Data Factory, which is coming soon. We are enabling developers to use active metadata for AI. So it will help you to enable agents to use Data Factory capabilities with many of the agentic tools like GitHub Copilot, Claude, and more. But the great thing, I think, with the Azure Data Factory MCP servers is with the support for also like the Azure AD or Entra authentication, the gateway management, so that you also can build your solutions in that one. Copy jobs, and I think like data flows, pipelines, copy jobs. If you can build that through MCP and you can define the correct skills for that, then I think your pipelines will look amazing, because you can give the correct skills, what you want to see. If you want to have kind of a logging information applied, or maybe you have already an example pipeline to say, okay, make this pipeline a lookalike from this pipeline, it will save you a lot of time. But still, after that you have built it or deployed it to Fabric, you need to test, to check everything, to do the quality checks on top of your pipeline before you bring it to production. It's not like clicky and it is done. You should check it. So that's just a small warning. So the next thing is, a lot of people are using already, or are using Data Factory or Synapse, and the question was, okay, how can we migrate these these packages to Fabric? So the great thing is there is now an upgrade path available by just clicking on top of the within your Azure Data Factory. You can click, and I think there's a video. So if you can click 2 slides for me, Marty, then there's a demo live where you can see how easily it is to migrate from Data Factory, Azure Data Factory to Fabric. So roll the video.
Here, I have my pipelines, data flows, data sets all here. I'll click the migrate to Fabric icon, and right away Fabric analyzes my factory. Pipelines, data sets, data flows, and identifies anything that may need review. This is the easy go fast buttons we were talking about. You see items that aren't Fabric ready yet. But here's the key. None of this blocks migration. I hit continue in Fabric, and Fabric mounts my existing ADF as an Azure Data Factory item inside my Fabric workspace. Now that my factory is mounted in Fabric, I can start modernizing safely, choosing exactly what to bring over first and where it should live in my Fabric workspace. In this step, Fabric takes what's running in Azure today and prepares a Fabric native version so I can validate before I switch anything over. Next, Fabric analyzes my link services and auto-creates Fabric connections. For the ones Fabric can't infer, I simply map them manually. Once connections are mapped, everything downstream just works. Fabric rebuilds each pipeline as a native Fabric pipeline using the new architecture. Now inside my migrations folder, I see all my pipelines, fully native, fully Fabric. Every activity, every connection, every configuration preserved. But there's one more question every ADF customer asks. What about my mapping data flow? This is where the full migration story completes. Coming soon, you will see mapping data flows in Fabric. I'll go ahead and click on the Migrate to Fabric button, and let's migrate only the mapping data flow. I'll do the same thing I did before and map the connections. And that's it. Coming soon, we can open the migrated mapping data flow as a design first data flow, and you can see the mapping data flow canvas is embedded directly inside the Dataflow Gen 2, and the logic is preserved without rewrites directly in the Fabric workspace. Bottom line, once you're in Fabric, you don't just migrate, you immediately connect ingestion, orchestration, and analytics into one.
So that was pretty cool to see, and also the checklist, which needs attention, which is migrated for you, pretty amazing. So just to do all the key announcements in one slide. So this was the slide you need to remember. We have been talking about outbound access protection with the endpoint and gateway allow list, so that you can protect to which data sources your data engineers can connect. We do now have the Azure Key Vault support for the VNet gateway, so you can define the secrets in there. The on-prem gateway auto update instead of manual, which will really help you. Service principal and workspace identity support for the Fabric pipelines, which makes work easier, and you don't have to use to refresh your tokens anymore. The copy job SSD type 2 support, so you can build your SSD2. Audit columns, interval-based scheduling, Airflow we have been talking about, the workspace monitoring, SSIS, and the last part, the AI native integration. So we have that new Data Factory MCP server, and I saw someone saying in the chat, every time I turn around, there's a new MCP server. Yes, you're right. So you should be you should be on. Don't turn around anymore, so that you don't receive new MCP servers anymore. So we have the AI transformations in the Dataflow Gen 2 as well. The pipeline expression. So Marty already said, like he really likes the expressions. I like the explanation of the errors, and we have been talking about the migration assistant for Azure Data Factory. By this, yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. We can say once more that all the sessions has been recorded. This session will take like within 48 hours. It will be published as well, but you can already start looking to the other sessions, or just scan the QR code or go to ak.ms ETL recap, and you can see all the sessions over there. And then we are going to the last slide of today. Again, next year we have Atlanta in Atlanta, or we have FabCon and SQLCon again in Atlanta. I'm from Europe, so we have also a FabCon SQLCon in Barcelona, the end of September, beginning of October, and maybe you already have seen it on the internet coming up. we do gonna have a FabCon and SQLCon in Sydney early at April next year. So Marty, this is your chance to go to FabCon next year, but then in Sydney. So that's for traveling for you. That will be much better.
That'll be great, Erwin. I hope to be there. Obviously, Sydney is a 10-hour drive, but it's only a 1.5-hour flight. So I'll be there. I hope to see you there. And thank you very much for your insights into ADF. I've certainly learned a bit off you, and I hope our audience have learned stuff as well. So I'll say goodbye, and I'll hand over to you to say your final last words, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you for doing this session together with me today, and for you a great evening, and for me a good night. Thank you very much, and to all the attendees, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Great stuff. See you later.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Irving, for the session today. Thank you all for joining us. Here at the Reactor, we are always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. So if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find the link to our survey on the screen or in the chat, and we'll see you on the next one.